Hello and welcome to the ManageIQ Sprint 95 review. This was a regular 2-week sprint that just ended on Monday the 24th. Next slide. I will go over the statistics for the sprint. Dan will provide us an overview on the UI. Adam will give us an update on the providers. Tina will update us on Automate. Gregg T on the platform. Alberto as usual on the REST API, and Chris on documentation. All right, so yesterday the Hammer branch was cut, so we're on our way to starting the stabilization of Hammer, which we're hoping to release by the end of the year. And now Master is now the basis for the next name, which is Ivanchuk, or Ivanchuk, however you want to call him. Yeah, that'll be the next release. Next slide, please. All right, so some statistics for the sprint. There were 94 repositories in play. 339 pull requests got merged. The winner this time was the integration test. Happy to see that we're focusing a lot of our efforts on testing the software, actually, or writing tests to test the software. So that's 29%. The UI comes in second at a little over 20%, and the core repository comes in third at almost 17%. Next slide. All right, in terms of the trend, this sprint looks awfully similar to the last sprint. 339 pull requests merged, and an equal number of pull requests opened. I think that's the first time that we've had that. So a really good pace, and it seems to be stabilizing. The last 3 sprints look pretty similar: 339, 312, 340. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of what made it into the sprint, 75 pull requests were enhancements, 69 were bugs, and 24 were tests. Maybe a bit misleading because I don't know how the labels of things were in the integration test repo. So there could be enhancements to create new tests, for example. So it's not just enhancement doesn't necessarily mean a feature. It means something new that wasn't there before, not just in the main code repositories. Next slide. Right, in terms of the health of some of our repositories, a lot of green across the board there. So I see some good movement in the ManageIQ code smells. I see some good movement in the Amazon provider deduplication, and the classic UI had all greens there across the board. So mostly good movement all around. I guess the SCVMM provider is the only one that went down. Would be good to take a look at that. And on the code coverage, and Kubernetes also went down a little bit. Other than that, it's looking pretty good. Next slide. All right, and over to Dan to tell us what happened on the UI side.
All right, great. So just a note on that health report, the UI has been green, all greens actually, for the last 3 weeks, or last 3 sprints. We've really been trying to put some effort to that, so that's good news. PR counts are down a little bit, but they were down a little bit across all the repos, so okay. On the enhancement side, quite a few things got enhanced. For the PG logical replication, when you were setting it up, it used to run synchronously, and so the UI would lock up. So now it's been changed to queue the operations. The physical infrastructure now allows nesting of the physical chassis. You can see that in the topology. We'll show that. For overt provisioning, sysprep support was added. Also in the physical chassis, you can now see the state of the location LEDs. Let's see, in the infrastructure, so the OpenStack infrastructure nodes, they added links to networks and subnets. So that's cool. In the V2V area, the best fit flavor API was integrated for OpenStack instances. Along with that, the next bullet is if there is no best fit, then it takes the default security group and the flavor with the largest disk size. On the bug side, a few of them OpenStack VMs that actually at the OpenStack instance and VM level, snapshot revert of a snapshot is not supported, so that's now hidden. The button is now hidden instead of just failing when you press it. There was a bug where the memory thresholds were saved as strings, so the worker didn't understand that, it needed to be saved as an integer. There were some inconsistencies introduced in the provider dashboards. Red X was added to certain cards, but it ended up being added to all cards, so that was taken care of, cleaned up. And in the custom buttons, there were expressions that allowed you to either hide or disable the buttons. But those are based on a record, so they cannot be used on the list views, even though the editor was letting you put in the expressions for a list view. So they would always fail because there was no record. So we've changed the editor to enforce that you can only use expressions when you're adding a button to just a summary screen. Next slide. Alrighty, so this is just showing the PG logical replication not locking up. You can see a spinner go pretty quick right there, but it used to just lock up the whole time. Now you get the error message or the message back later. Next slide. All right, there's your topology view. They do look different if you look close. The first one, all the lines are going directly out to the chassis, and now you can see there's some nested chassis there where one chassis owns a bunch of other ones. Next slide. All right, this is just the sysprep support for overt. There's a choice there. It's hard to see, it's a little small, but you get all the sysprep options then once you choose that. Next slide. All right, this is just the new OpenStack support with the pre-filling of the default security group and flavors when there's no best fit option. And the next slide. On to providers. Adam?
All right, thanks, Dan. So a lot of great changes from the providers this sprint. Next slide. We could see Lenovo, OpenStack, and Kubernetes led the way. This is pretty sure higher than the number of PRs last sprint, so getting a lot of really good changes in here. Next slide. On the core side, so we moved graph refresh out into a gem called inventory refresh, which is due to ManageIQ and being. So this lets us have a little bit more control over what we call stable for inventory refresh, and let's play around with some new features without breaking a stable ManageIQ. We also added the ability to have authentications owned by tenants and groups. So in this case, it's possible to inventory particularly OpenStack instances that have SSH keys, and now we can actually assign those SSH keys to users so that they're not visible by people outside of it. And on the overt side, this is something that I think Boris have been working on for at least a month, maybe 2 months, adding overt support, sysprep support for overt, which is something that's been there for VMware for a long time. And he went through a lot of testing on a lot of different versions of Windows to get this working, so great job. Lenovo added the parsing of physical disks and canisters, where the canisters are sort of like a sub-type of storage within a bigger physical storage array. And a lot of parser refactoring. There are probably 7 or 8, too many to list here, so they're really going through cleaning up their parsers, which is great.
To tie them into the graph refresh thing that you guys moved, or
that's actually something Martinez is working on. They'll probably be
the next thing.
Yeah. And next slide. On the OpenStack side, they had some issues where it's possible for a volume to not have a name, and so in that case, they're using the UUID to prevent some validation failures. And they also enhanced the loading of snapshot templates. If it's given admin credentials, what they used to be doing was going through every tenant and querying for the volume snapshots individually. Now, if they have admin credentials, they get them all in one shot, which just makes for a lot faster refresh. On the Kubernetes side, we added full-end streaming refresh support for service catalog inventory, which is something that's a new endpoint in staging for Kubernetes, and so we're collecting that if it's configured. And we're also processing delete notices for streaming refresh. Before it would just do updates and creates. Now we do deletes on the streaming refresh as well, so that's getting much more full-featured, a viable option. And on the Amazon side, we added full and targeted refresh support for the Amazon service catalog. So really trying to and for providers that were getting service catalog inventory. And next slide, over to Tina.
Thanks, Adam. Good morning. We had 22 PRs merged this sprint. For V2V, Fabian added the transformation throttling base components. We exposed the MIQ request and MIQ request task cancellation status to the service models, and Lucy added the VM migration validation. Madhu added the ability for embedded methods to embed other methods. Previously, only a single level of embedded methods were supported. This is a really powerful change because it enables users to utilize common automate method code in many ways and has built-in protection against circular references and prevents against methods being embedded multiple times. Billy Fitz added the log and notify method to log object embedded method, and Patrick added a new delete state bar method. Next slide, please. DrewU fixed the generic object custom button issue where dialog values weren't getting set properly. DrewU made a change to retirement as a request to create a service retire task for subservices to resolve an issue where a service was getting properly retired, but the subservices were not marked as retired. Drew made a service retirement change to prevent retirement from being called twice for service resources. Lucy added code to filter encrypted passwords logged during resolution. There were several places in the EVM and automation logs where we logged the encrypted values of password fields. With Lucy's changes, the password entries in logs will show asterisks instead of the encrypted values. Lucy added storage profile support to the VMware best fit least utilized automate method. That's it for automate. Next slide, and over to Greg.
Okay, on the platform, we had 23 PRs merged, a few enhancements here. Libor added allocated CPU cores and memory to metering reports. He also added the switch model to RBAC. It was already taggable, and you can do that through the UI, so you should be able to do RBAC on that. Joe Raffanello updated the appliances to run Ruby 2.4.4 now. Some bug fixes. Yuri fixed some fixes to replication setup, including the work he did for queuing the backend work for queuing the replication subscription that Dan talked about. Brandon made a change to prevent queuing things for zones that is not in our region, that came from a bug where stuff was central admin bug where queuing stuff for a zone that's in the lower region doesn't exist in the global region and it never really goes anywhere. So now we would know about it at least, and there's some other work going on for that. Joe Raffanello fixed an interesting bug on Postgres connection where if the connection failed in the beginning, it would try to connect without SSL and it would fail and continue to fail, reconnect until you actually restarted the service. So now he does a full, basically kills the connection, creates a new one for connecting that. Share that. And I mentioned that the replication part that Yuri did, we made a change to, we were logging deprecations everywhere, and now we're not doing that in production mode. And Yuri added access to my tasks to self-service roles, the limited self-service roles in RBAC. I think that's it for the platform. Next slide.
All right, thanks, Greg. So for the APIs, we have two enhancements that came in the sprint. First one is we have a new endpoint for cloud volume types by chains. You see here the entry, the cloud volume types touching the collection or individual. Next slide, please. An enhancement by Aparna. Here we needed the ability to edit transformation mappings for V2V. You see the standard edit signature. And an example here, changing the name as well as the individual transformation mapping items. And that's it for the rest of the next slide, please.
Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
No
For Sprint 95, we had a total of 12 PRs merged, 8 of which addressed enhancements and 4 of which regarded bugs. Some highlights are we've added some info on requirements for the trailing slash to the URL when adding an Ansible tower provider. We've updated the installation instructions for Azure. We've corrected some info in the high availability guide regarding failover. We've added retirement granularity info and a new procedure on retiring virtual machines, and updated the appliance hardening guide with a note regarding unsupported non-root users. That's it.
Okay, and that brings to a conclusion the Sprint 95 review. I want to thank everyone involved for making Sprint 95 happen. And we'll be back in 2 weeks to show what we did in Sprint 96. Thanks, everyone.